To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, just a couple of announcements before we go. Many of you know that we've been recording our programs. We are now pretty much up to date with what's on the YouTube channel. So there's a paper on the back table that has a list of all the programs and how to access them. So that's back there, pick that up. There's also information on just the society in general. So if you haven't picked any of those papers up, do that. If you haven't signed up for email, you can do that as well. Our next meeting will be October 23rd at Tabor United Methodist Church, and that will be the Clemers Mill area, and the person is?
Smokey Panapinto.
Okay, that's who's going to be talking. And then our last meeting for the year is November 27th, and it's about the ice house industry along the Perkiomen. So that will also be at Tabor Church. So that's what's coming up. We are, as always, collecting anything that says Upper Salford on it. My neighbor just gave me a note card that was a bridge, the old railroad bridge by the township building that someone had painted. So anything, big or small, we are collecting anything that's Upper Salford. If you come across it, either we can make copies, you can donate it, however you want to do it. Okay. Our speaker tonight is Bryan, and he is obviously a painter. He painted, if you just want to flip around, he painted the picture on the back. That's what got me started asking Bryan to come. He did that and gave it to donated it to the fire company. So Bryan's going to tell us about his journey for painting. Bryan?
Thank you. You just took my thunder for the...
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
When Pat asked me to speak, she had already seen the firehouse painting. And I thought, how do I and my painting relate to the history of Upper Salford? So I came up with two possibilities. Either I am recording future history, or Pat thinks I'm a historic relic. I grew up in Waxhaw. Since I guess we moved from Sunny Town, I was about 3 years old. Don't remember that, but I do remember growing up in Waxhaw. I remember drawing and painting and doing things all of my life. Anybody remember Gene London?
Oh, yeah.
In some ways, I wanted to be just like Gene London, if you know what I mean. And I realized one time when he was telling his stories and drawing the pictures, they got the camera angle right. He was actually tracing from under there, so he lost a few points with me there. But I always liked watching Gene London because he would draw and tell his stories. In high school, I was an art major. I wanted to be an art teacher. But again, grew up in Waxhaw, grew up poor, no money, no support, had to get a job, pay tuition when I needed a car to get to college. So put all that together, and college got pushed by the wayside. Worked at Ladies for 2 years, a little over 2 years. You know, Dave Flake, who grew up in Salford here in Waxhaw, he kept pushing me to join the fire company. So at the end of 1973, I think it was, I did, and I enjoyed it. It was the first time I was accepted as a man in the community. At home, to get that kind of support. So I got interested in doing fire company, fire police, and then Barbara Township had an advertisement for a police officer. What the heck? I enjoyed what I was doing with the fire company. This was my introduction to public service, and that got me into public service for my whole life in one way or another. Although I was no longer painting or doing anything like that, I was still artistic in my life. When I was a cop, my accident drawings were second to none. They were some really good drawings. When I cut the grass, I want to get the angles right, and just it had to look good. But But then I knew that I needed to go to college. I was 32 years old, was not getting promoted in the police departments I was working in. Guys were getting promoted because they had degrees. Not as much experience, but they had the piece of paper. So then it came up again, money, family, bills. I figured I'm going to let somebody else pay for it this time. I enlisted in the Navy when I was 32 years old.
32.
To go to college. While I was at my first assignment was Naval Air Facility in Subi, Japan. The security officer, again, still in law enforcement, asked me if I wanted to teach the DARE program. I always wanted to teach the DARE program when I was a cop. So I went to the training and taught the DARE program in the base school. I fell in love with teaching again. So I take orders to Lemoore, California, finish up my degree. Family concerns, I do 7 active and then back into the reserves. So I taught at St. Gabe's, not art, but I did teach at St. Gabriel's Hall. That was fun. Eventually, again, had that urge to do something, so I focused it on woodcrafting. I did some woodcrafting for a while. February will be 5 years ago, I was in an RV park in Florida. They advertised a sip and paint class, $30 for an afternoon. I thought, what the heck? I'm going to go paint, see what I can do. My blood was just boiling, blending the colors. I don't want to take too much time on me rather than the paintings. I had the wrong time. I got there at 1:30, thinking that's when it started. It started at 1 o'clock. So I walk into the recreation room in the RV park, and there's like 30, 40 little white heads behind the canvases, and they're all painting their background. It's like, what happened? Why am I not all? So I found the instructor, apologized for being late. She said, oh, do you still want to paint? I said, paid my $30, of course I did. So she said, we got everything set up for me. And she said, I'll come back and help you get caught up. I said, it was, 40-some years ago at that point. I was an art major in high school, and I heard all these groans from the little old ladies. So I said, I'd probably get caught up. 5 minutes I was caught up with them. And then painted through that. The next day I went out to the local Hobby Lobby, bought some supplies, and I've been painting ever since. Rick asked me before we started, just how many paintings have I done? I counted them up, it's 56 in less than 5 years. Most of them take me 20 to 25 hours. Some quicker, some longer. But I'm not Bob Ross. I was going to wear my Afro wig, I thought, that's just... I was Bob Ross at the VFW on Halloween last year. But I am not Bob Ross. I don't do the wet on wet style. Occasionally I'll be doing some of that, but I don't use oil. That's the thing. I use acrylics. A lot of people, artists slam me because there's not as much depth in my paintings as oil. Bob Ross died at 52 from lymphoma. Remember he used to whack his brush with the thinner? The crew said that was all over the studio. Lymphoma sometimes can be linked to chemicals, butanes and all that stuff. So if I ever do oils, it's going to be outside, not in my house. Ask questions as we go. If I don't see you, just shout. And then when we're finished, you can come up and take a close look at the actual paintings. Most of these are on the slideshow, but I want to point some things out better up there. So we can get started.
Ready?
First slide. Yep.
Do you want to turn
which light?
Far switch, closest to the door.
Okay. This is what we did in the art class, the RV park sip and paint class. Very simple. I still do silhouettes. I find them very relaxing, but I just loved blending the colors. See those red clouds just above the horizon? They were not there originally. When I went back to my camper with my new supplies and I'm blending, I didn't realize I'm splashing onto that's hanging on the wall. And by the time I noticed it, all the little spots were dry, I couldn't pick them off, so I had to put some extra clouds in it. So I did. I went out and I got all my supplies, and then I started painting. I thought, what am I going to paint? I had a brand new phone, no pictures on it. So I had to go to my Facebook page. Next slide. That's a picture I took when we were in Iraq waiting for our ride back down to Kuwait. The photograph actually has the rotors in that position. I lucked out. I probably would have painted them that way. But, I mean, I really loved it when I did it, compared to what I'm doing now, it is kind of crude. But I enjoyed doing it. I had to paint something. And I had a couple other pictures I painted. Next one. I'm not one for taking selfies, but over in Kuwait, I did take my picture and painted it. I was stopping in to see my son at my ex's house. I mean, he didn't adult, he was staying there for a while. And I was showing him, and she saw it, and she said, I can't say that it looks like you, but if somebody showed me a whole bunch of pictures, I'd know that was you. Because I could never do faces. I can do a face, but I'm not saying it's going to look like it. That's not part of my talent. But we called it a face sock to keep the dust out of our nose and our mouth. So I can do it. So I painted myself. Next slide. I do silhouettes because they're relaxing. When I do a very technical picture and I want to relax but I don't want to stop painting, I'll do a silhouette. I don't live around palm trees, but I do live around pine trees. I did a series of 3 of these. When I finished this one, it's like, that reminds me so much of walking out of the woods during deer season, when the sun's going down. And I had to do a little contrail, and I had to do something different.
Oops, you ready?
Yep, go ahead. I have a cousin up in New York. She takes her dogs for walks, and she's always taking pictures. She posted this on her Facebook page. I love birch trees to begin with. And now I love painting them. She took this picture right around the first day of spring, the vernal equinox. I loved doing the trees, the foreground, and the clouds. I do get better on clouds. You don't paint clouds, you create clouds now. But I liked it so much. You see on my card, I call it's not a business, but I call my efforts Mountain Equinox Art. The equinox is a change of season. This is in the mountains of New York. That's what I call myself. It was just a pond, birch trees. Again, I love painting birches. I should do more of them. Did I get out of order?
Did I get out of order?
That's okay.
Okay.
Oh, I switched the card. Thistles. I love thistles. I saw thistles driving to work when I was living in the mountains. I had some in my yard, so I took pictures. When I started painting, I didn't want a background to take away from the details of the thistle, so I just made a general blue background. And then I tried to make magenta paint. I had red, I had blue, I could not make magenta. I thought I could. I had to run to the store. Thankfully, they have light magenta, medium magenta, and dark magenta. So I bought that, mixed it with some red and the blue and the white, and created the thistles. I did that in 7 days, a couple hours a day. But once I started, I did not want to stop. That's one of my favorites. Okay, next one. This again is up in the mountains. It's on Pine Grove Road, so I called it Pine Grove Barn. When I paint from the photographs at home, I don't paint exactly what's on the photograph. This barn is brown, blackish creosote, but I like the shape. I like the tin roof. I like the rust on the roof. There were not hay bales in the field, but I like the round hay bales. I like the look of them. So I put all of that together into this painting. And this painting actually did not start as the barn. In the same field, go ahead, next slide,
Oh, sorry.
there's a series of fence posts. And I love the texture on this fence post. When that tree grew, it's actually been put in the ground upside down because of the way the branch comes off there was cut off. But I love, can you blow that up a little bit to get some of the texture? Are you?
I don't know.
I'm just curious. Well, up in the right-hand corner, there's a plus in or is that a search?
That's it.
No, right there.
That's
Okay.
That's
Yeah,
it.
I use my
That's
thumb,
what
so I
you
just use
should-
my fingers to
That's when you
expand.
take it out. I think it's as high as it'll go.
Okay, that's fine.
Sorry.
That's fine. But I really like doing the texture on that old fence post. Next one.
Next one?
Yep.
Oops.
That one is over there. That is the first bridge across the Unami behind Sunnytown. going up Swamp Creek Road. As you'll see, I love doing stones. Stone walls, stone buildings, stone barns, stone bridges. I like doing the stone work. I'm sure I take more time than most artists because I do a very much multi-step process. I will paint like this. The bridge, I'll paint it a brownish gray color for background. Then I'll go in and I'll put some of the mortar in to separate the stones. Then I'll paint the stone shapes. Then I'll go back and clean up the mortar. Then I'll put highlights and shadows on the stones and just keep going back and forth until I'm satisfied. So it takes me a long time to do stones, but I learned in elementary school, we were working on a project laying on the floor in the hall, we were doing individual stones in the wall. The teacher said, no, just paint everything brown and then make the circles and squares for your stones. That was fine in elementary school. I didn't like to do it that way. I like to have a lot of different color in the stones. And you'll notice local, you'll see a lot of purple stones because we have the red shale in the area. So I bring that in as accuracy. This one, I actually kind of surprised myself, the reflection, I love the reflection. Sometimes I love doing reflection, sometimes they don't come out as good. This one I think I nailed. And the little leaves floating down there on the right. I like to put something of whimsy into my paintings you might not expect. This also has the foreground leaves. I needed something other than just background, so I painted leaves up close and put a lot of detail into them. Next one. Okay, this is definitely out of order. This is actually here. That is 8 by 10. The interesting thing about this painting, you notice the texture? It's on burlap, not linen canvas. When I go shopping for my supplies, these burlap canvases, I'm thinking, I don't like to paint on linen canvases unless I really smooth them out with a lot of coats of gesso and sand them down. But I thought, what the heck, they were on sale, it's a small one, I think it was $2, I threw it in the cart. Once I did the burlap though, I really fell in love with it. It gives texture to the trees, to the background, to the water. The problem with the texture is diagonal lines, like pixelates, like on a computer. I got to be careful on diagonal or any straight lines that they don't line up. They're not going to be straight. Again, this reflection, I blew myself away. It was my 4th attempt to get the reflection and the shadow the way I wanted it. And if you're interested, I actually have a slideshow I can put together of painting this, and you can see how I change the water back and forth. It's on my old phone. Next slide. This is what I was expecting.
Okay.
Again, I do silhouettes because they relax me. This had another intent. A member of the Red Hill VFW, the local vet rep, she works with the club, her husband's a member of the club. She saw some of my paintings, actually donated one of my paintings to the club. It's a 50 caliber in a helicopter window when we flew up to Iraq and back to Kuwait. She asked if I would do an art therapy class for vets. Vets who are stay at home, they don't interact, they don't get out. She will try to get them to come out to do something with other vets. It's therapeutic, they can sit and talk to people about their experiences. Because a lot of vets, especially Vietnam vets, they're still affected. They don't interact a lot with people. So I thought, okay, something simple, do a silhouette like I started out, and I like doing moons. I like doing circles. For a long time, circles were a problem. I'd start making my circle with my brush. Now it's lopsided. I do a little bit more. It's still lopsided. My moons grew as I tried to paint them. And then I saw online an artist who posts her work, time-lapse photography. She uses a template and a sponge. So I cut out round templates, different sizes, and I dip a sponge, a little bit of paint, dot, 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 a little bit of paint, to get me the shape, and I can change the color by adding the blues and the grays, take the template off, and then I can smooth out the edges that might be a little bit too rough. I think of it sometimes as cheating, but it's just another skill. I can paint using sponge and a template. So I did this in 1 hour and 15 minutes. For a class, the sip of paint class is normally about 3 hours. I did a practice at the VFW with the vet rep, the post commander, and the club manager. And we had about 2 hours with them, and they all loved it. It's not difficult. They teach the different steps as we go. Again, for me, this is therapeutic after I do something that's more technical. I can relax, I can blend, and like Bob Ross says, I'm going to paraphrase him, there are no mistakes, there are opportunities. Next slide. I love this one. This was difficult, but I drive past New Goshenhoppen quite often, and at night I thought, I have to paint that. I did. It wasn't easy getting the washed out effect from the spotlights, the steeple fading, but I had to put some of the slates in the steeple. Took me several tries to get it right, but I kept seeing where I wanted to go. That's the advantage of painting rather than woodworking and sculpting. I can go back and redo it. And I have to be honest, there are a few in my closet that I just put away. I'm not happy, I'm not into it anymore. They're half-finished canvases in the closet. Let me show you one thing on this while I'm on here. Most canvases, if you remember, are about 5/8 of an inch thick. This is 1 inch and 3/8, I think it is. It's much stiffer. I can paint around the corner, so I don't have to buy a frame for it. I just continue the painting around. Or like the fire company, I just painted in fire engine red around the corner. Because that was so much detail throughout the building on both sides, I just painted it red. But I really like, and they're not cheap. I'm talking a mile a minute. Are there any questions as we're going? I see a lot of nods and, okay. I call this the Christmas barn. It's actually based on something you've probably driven past. Highly amended. Anybody have a guess where this is?
Turkey Elmendale.
Turkey Elmendale. At the end of Crusher Road, where Upper Ridge Road and 29 meet.
Yeah.
That barn is just filled with windows. I didn't want to paint a lot of windows. I wanted to paint stone walls. So, and I turned the roof from that tannish color to red, changed the doors and above the door a little bit, and that was just a plain area. So I found an Amish with an 8-pointed star, and I thought, let's like Christmassy. So I put wreaths on it. Of course, the background is not throughout 29. I painted that out. And there's only one, well, actually, that tree on the right is now gone. That was cut down. When I took the photo, there was a pine tree there. The tree on the left was not there, but I needed something to balance out a little bit. So, okay, next one. Have any ideas? Frieden's, yes. My plot is back around here somewhere. But I like the composition of taking that photo. You've got the church, you've got the hills behind, and I keep losing count. There's about 130 headstones that I painted in there and highlighted and shadowed. But it's local. It's something I know, and I enjoy doing it. The clouds are a little different. My clouds are getting better as I go. And yes, that tombstone in the front, it's not quite that red. It's got like a reddish brown, but my camera makes things red, and I painted it red. But that's actually the color. Best thing about this was doing the little flags on the veterans' graves. I really enjoyed doing that. They're quite small, all waving in a different way. In fact, first time I did it, I had one on the wrong grave. I realized when I went back. So I have an invention. I have an eraser. I made a paint eraser. It's an old brush, a little bit of water, and I just scrub a little, wipe it, scrub a little bit. As long as it's not too dry, and the background is very dry, I can actually erase mistakes that might have been an opportunity. But I don't want to leave a flag on the wrong grave. Excellent. This is local, but not a lot of people get down there. This is along Sunnytown Road, off of Turkey Owensville Road, across from McConnell's Orchard where the driveway comes out. Sunnytown Road runs down the creek. Years ago, it used to run to Sunnytown across the creek. But there's a barn down there, Again, it inspired me. This is not an exact copy. I rarely do exact copies of my photographs, but it inspired me. I liked the plaster wall, which took me 3 tries to get the shading right on the rough plaster wall, the rocks. That's not a red bud in real life, it's a green tree, but I thought the red looked good. And for Scythia, that's just a bush. But I also cleaned up the door and the window. They have like fiberglass roof panels over them. But it inspired me. I get inspired by my photographs to do paintings. Like I told Ginny one time, I have artistic license and I'm not afraid to use it. Next one. Everybody knows that. That's Old Gosh and Hoppin'. After I did Frieden's, I wanted to do Old Gosh and Hoppin'. So I was standing up at the cemetery, took some pictures, went home, I looked at it and said, the background isn't as interesting. It didn't turn me on. When I looked at the pictures, I thought, that steeple's leaning. Did the storm do that?
Yes.
So I asked somebody, I said, no, it's been like that for years. I thought, I'm going to take a picture, hopefully capture that. Did I? Did I get the lean? And again, artistic license, I put about 50 years growth on that tree. The tree is there in that position, but from where I took the photo, you can't see it. So I made it grow about 50 years because it was too bare. I needed something else in that spot. I think it was this painting also. Yes, it was. I taught myself how to do windows with reflections. I do the dark brown, the dark blue. You never use straight black on a painting, always mix with something else. But I do the dark black, dark blue to show that there's nothing behind the window. Then I take a little bit of white or off-white, make some reflections. They stick out too much, so I thin my blue down and come over it again and gives you just a nice subdued reflection. You don't see it too much on this. You can check it over here in the firehouse, has it a lot also. Okay. Partially in Upper Salford. This is the trail. This is at Crusher Road. Background is Upper Salford, foreground is Marlborough Township. This is a combination over 2 years. My first photograph had the red buds growing. County comes along and mows down everything along the trail. They were no longer there. But when I took the second photograph, the ivy had grown up on the fence, which I thought set off the fence really nice. So I combined, over the course of 2 years, into one painting. Next. Everybody knows this. Right down here on the corner. The old Posey's Hotel. When I'm painting, I love blending the background and the sky. Then when I start blocking in the foreground, the buildings, I sometimes question myself what I'm doing. Is this really where I want to take this painting? I push myself through it, and then it all, to me, it comes alive when I do the shadows. Shadows make everything come out. Before that, it's just flat. It's like you're looking at a cartoon cell. There's just nothing there, there's no depth. But when you start putting in the shadows, the tree on the old garage, the shadow from the light pole under the eaves, that just, to me, that really makes the paintings come alive. Oh, and I did change this one quite significantly. Do you know what I changed on it?
You shortened the back end of it.
Well, that didn't come out quite the right size, but I didn't paint all the junk on the porch. All the dead hanging baskets and the lawn furniture. I said, no, I'm not going to put that in. I don't need that in the painting.
Whoops.
Oh,
I gotta get back one.
Yeah.
There we go. Were you
No,
done with the
go
other one?
back. Yeah, I want to go back to
Okay.
the Salford. You don't see too well up here, the real thing. I loved how the chimney came out, because it's that brownish brick kind of, and again, sometimes I surprise myself. Because again, I've only been repainting now almost 5 years, and I do something right, it's like, how did I do that? I have to remember. Okay, now.
There you go.
Any guesses? Cindy knows because she sees my paintings on Facebook. This is along the trail. You can't see the trail. Cut the bottom off. The guide rail up there, that's Hendricks Road. Hendricks Station Road is up to the left. It was in the fall. I like the colors. I like the fence posts. Took that picture. I knew I was going to paint it. This too is burlap. I'm doing all of my trail paintings on burlap. I do gesso them and sand them, but I keep a lot of the texture there. Okay, go ahead. Another trail on burlap. Where is it?
We always called that Bass Rock. It's before you get into Spring Mountain on the trail.
Right behind the Folk Festival.
Yeah, that's where I got this scar.
Yeah. Yeah, and here's an example. I mean, I like the rocks, but to paint them exactly the way they were, it's a little bit boring from the angle I took the photograph, so I changed a little bit. And then I had no scale, and I don't like to do people. I thought, well, if I put somebody in the distance, I don't have to do a face. I can do their shape. So I put the guy on the bicycle, which is fairly accurate for scale. And when I took the photo, there were two people that were walking much closer. They took up too much of the paint, so I'm going to leave them in. And you take a look at the actual photograph, or the painting, it looks like the guy was walking like this. Well, he was a very heavy-set man, and this is the way he was walking. Not intentionally, but I painted what I saw, and it looks exactly how he did on the actual photograph. Okay, go ahead. This is the last one I finished. Everybody should know this one. Again, it's on burlap. I did a lot of artistic license on this one. The foreground grass area, it does have that patch of weeds. I don't know if it's a wet area, but it doesn't get mowed. But then everything else looked kind of bare, so I put in some semi-living, semi-dying cedar trees to give it some character. When I thought I was finished and I posted it on my Facebook page, I like to look at a picture for a while, a painting, before I post it, because I see things. Well, this one I wanted to get finished and get ready for tonight. So I posted on Facebook, and I'm sitting on the love seat in the living room. I thought, something missing. The trail was just a gray spot. I mean, it had the tire marks and different shading in it, but I forgot to put leaves in it. And I thought, I know what else I find on the trail. Horse trail. And horses also use that trail. So, and I've avoided the big ones, but in the painting I put a bike tire trail going right through it. That's my whimsical addition to this one. And I was concerned about all the signs, but that's real life, and it came out exactly as I saw it. And this one I also worked from several photographs, so if you try to find exactly where I stood, good luck. At least one of them I took standing on the bumper of my truck to get higher. That gives the elevation, but I used probably 3 or 4 different views just to get everything I was looking for. And then riding on the trail, I'd see something different. In fact, it's hard to see on here, the little gingerbread detail underneath the porch. I didn't realize that was there until I was riding by one down my bike. And I looked at the photograph closely, it's like, yeah, I guess it is there. So I put that little detail in.
Where is that?
That's Salford, that's
Salford Post Office.
yeah, the post office. When I grew up, it was Force's store and the post office.
That's Quarry,
Yeah.
Salford Station.
Yep, Quarry comes down, Salford on the right. And again, there are some people there, but they're off in the background.
First it was A.H. Richards.
What's that?
A.H. Richards is what it was first, the general store.
When I grew up, we picked up, that was a bus stop. That was Force's store. And
Before Forces, it was Bersley's.
yeah, there's a long history, like any store in the area. Okay, before you go to the next one,
Sure, you want to explain.
I was playing with my phone. You have different photographic effects. Warm colors, cool colors. I hit black and white. What's your first impression when you see this? To me, I thought, that looks like a photograph, like an old-time photograph. Unfortunately, my phone doesn't have sepia tones. I would love to do some in sepia rather than just black and white.
That's really cool.
But something about the highlights become lighter, the shadows become darker. I don't know what it is, but I saw that and I said, that looks like an old photograph. Maybe because I'm old. Okay, next one. This is a masterpiece, my masterpiece to me. I came out to, my first Historical Society meeting was here when Rick gave the fire company presentation, and I added to it, corrected some of his information from the old days, back in the 70s. Then I came back for 4th of July parade, and Rick took me all around the new building and downstairs, what used to be the meeting room, and he wants to turn it into a lounge maybe at some point. And I thought, then this room needs a painting. So I started taking pictures. Lori Smith met me, put the doors up so I could take the photographs. Came back a couple times to take different photographs. And then on the 75th anniversary celebration, I gave it to the fire company. And they finally got it up in the back of the room if you want to see the real thing. For some reason, when Pat's taking these photos off of my Facebook page, a lot of them are getting cut off on the bottom.
Yeah.
Again, this one I changed a little bit. The siren is there, but that's not exactly the position of the old siren. In fact, when I showed it to Lori, she was the first one to see it because she helped me out. She looked at it and says, "Is there really an antenna on the roof?" I said, "Yeah, there's really an antenna up there." And I'm glad I did when I did, because very shortly some of those trucks aren't going to be there.
Yeah.
They're upgraded, but I even got the orange traffic cones on the right to keep it from cutting out onto the aprons.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. This one I love.
Salford Station.
This is the 1903 photograph. How many of you have this book? That's Ralph Moyer's, yep. Yep. How many of you have this book? On the cover, and page 25 is the black and white photograph. There's a story behind this. Pat asked me if I would paint a painting for the fire company to raffle off to make money, because I have donated a couple to the penny auction, which, before I forget, the red barn over here, that one I donated for penny auction. Ginny loved it so much, which, what, $40 in on tickets on that?
I think it was,
To make sure she won it.
yeah, it was a lot.
But Pat came up with the idea of me painting something and donating it to be raffled off to sell raffle tickets at different events. She said, just not a decision yet, Ways and Means Committee has to approve it, but we decided on that picture, and I wanted to do it anyway, so I did. I colorized the black and white. Now, I didn't know the color of the station. I asked around and found out from Mr. Gerhard that it was a butternut with brown trim. So I looked up butternut online, found some colors, and painted from there. According to the caption, these are Dunkards that came up out of the city to go to a meeting at Indian Creek Church. So again, it's people, but they're not the focus. I didn't have to do their faces. An old black and white photo, a lot of details were washed out. That was just basically a light gray ground. So I had that color to it. I didn't like it. I added some grass. I didn't like it. And I thought, wheel ruts. So I put in the wheel ruts. Now, I usually start in the background and move forward. When I did the horses, it's like, yeah, they're not bad, but I don't know if I want to have any horses up front. That red wagon, I actually turned it around. In the painting, the horses are on that end, a 3/4 rear end view. It's like, I don't know if I want to tackle that. If I can't do, side views of horses to my satisfaction, I'm not going to try to do a 3/4 rear end view on a horse. I just turned the wagon around and left the tailgate down to show that it's facing the other way. should have had this thing going the whole time to point out things. That is a horse. One of my granddaughters thought it was another man standing there. But it's got front and back legs together so they look wider than a horse's legs. She thought it was a man standing there. What else about this one? Oh, the railroad tracks are not in the painting. You can just barely see the edge, but it's a train station. I want to have railroad tracks. That is just one box sitting on the ground. So if somebody shipped something in or waiting to get shipped out, I want to make it bigger. So there's my artistic license. Not necessarily improving photographs, but making them something I enjoy. I paint because I like it. Some people have asked me, will you do a painting for me? My answer is maybe. I have to like the subject. You have to agree that I have artistic license to change things. I normally don't put downspouts on buildings. I think they're ugly. I did on the Salford Station store, but I think that needed it. It just needed that in the corners. I got burned one time. I got commissioned to do a painting. It was a woman came to me at an art show when I was up in the Poconos. Her daughter had passed away. She claims murder. Police say drugs, but drugs don't beat you about the head and face. But anyway, she was crying, asked me if I'd paint it, gave me the photograph. I thought, yeah, there's not a whole lot of face detail. She's kneeling on a rock by a creek. So I'm painting away at it, and I get a text from her. My husband wants a divorce. I don't have the money. Sorry. What do I owe you? So I asked for half of what we agreed upon. Don't see it, don't see it, don't see it. I met this girl. She worked at a diner I used to go to, and I felt compelled to finish her painting. Whether I sold it or anything, I felt compelled to finish it. So I went to a mutual friend after it wasn't quite done. And she tried to intercede. Now the problem was the husband had a heart attack. I guess they were still together at that point. Now there's still no money. So it's like, all right, I'm going to finish it. I offered it to the owner of the diner because the girl had worked there as a waitress. Her boyfriend, the girl's boyfriend, had passed away and had a little bit of a shrine on the wall. So I said, would you like to add that? She said, let me talk to the husband. Finally, the husband paid for it. Maybe that helped the relationship by having the daughter's painting. I don't know. I was tempted to bring it, but I thought, you know what, I'll tell you the story. If you really want to see it, I'll show it to you on my phone. But the mom says, she said, she didn't want me to finish it at first. She said, I don't want to happen to see that someplace. I felt I had to finish it because I started and I knew the girl. And whatever the story was of her death, I just felt compelled to finish it. I'm glad I did. I'm glad they got it. Before we go into questions, Pat, would you come here? Finish up the story on this. I don't know who owns the rights to that photograph in the book. Intellectual property, I can't sell it. I was going to donate to the fire company. I don't think anybody mind the fire company making money off it. But the Ways and Means Committee said, it's not fire company. We don't think we're going to do it. So, Pat, I want to donate this to the Historical Society.
Wow, thank you.
If you will let me have it back, I want to put a little plaque down here.
Sure,
Yeah, there's a wire on the back, there's no wire to hang it. But I mean, as much as I love it and like to hang it in my house, I'd like the Historical Society to have it, to hang with the other paintings and things that they have. Any questions? Comments? Like we said in the Navy, bitches, grapes, moans, and groans. Yes, sir.
You ever work in watercolor?
I would love to work in watercolor. I haven't since I was little. I did buy pencils to start doing some sketching. I hope I don't wait too long. I want to start picking some of the pokeberries along the trail and make my own ink. Ben Franklin used them. There's little brown, dark purplish blueberries. You can boil them down and make ink. So I want to do some ink drawing. I am just so set up to do my acrylics, and I enjoy it so much. Something's going to happen to make me say, I need to start watercoloring. Because I can use acrylic paints. I just need to get the brushes, the paper and get some more background on how to do it appropriately, not when I was a little kid with just little metal tins.
Right.
When in elementary school, I always got the one that had 3 missing. Or they were all used up. I hated that. They never got new ones. But I liked it because I have a painting over my bed. It was a watercolor. I won it at a benefit. It's geese taking off over a pond with the reeds. I couldn't do it in acrylics or oils. It's in watercolor and it is so beautiful. There's just a different medium, but I would like to try it before I get too old. Yes.
Well, I taught art for 23 years, watercolor, so if you want to work with me, I'll
Sure.
work with you.
Sure. You'll have to find out what I'm going to need to get
No,
my
I
supply.
found it all.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, she's a good teacher. She's a good teacher.
I wish I had been an art teacher. But when I was teaching at St. Gabriel's, I did. First year was social studies and English. Then I got deployed after September 11th, came back, that position was filled. You have to have a job back, but not the job you left by law. They had a math position open. I hate math. My certification for teaching private school is elementary and secondary social studies, not math. Arithmetic, yes. So just a little background, at St. Gabe's, they don't divide the kids on grade level because a lot of them haven't been in school in years. Or they'll be in 10th grade, but they're functioning to 3rd grade math or reading level. So they divide by cluster. Cluster A was kind of your junior high, high school. Cluster B was your upper elementary, junior high. And then cluster C was the kids who are really struggling. 18-year-old boys who don't know arithmetic. I was scheduled to do the cluster B, which was algebra. It's like, I can work myself through it, but I don't know if I can teach it. So I went to, this is just coming back from my deployment, I went to the teacher who was assigned for the cluster C. I said, would you mind switching at least for a year? So I taught arithmetic, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division to teenage boys because they never had the training. I did get to be really good friends with the art teacher. And showed her I did when I was in high school, I did a wood block that I still like. I didn't think about bringing that. But teaching the boys, carrying in addition, really threw them. Borrowing and subtraction. If you have a second, I'll tell you how I got through that. We could not use dice to teach. We could not use selling drugs, of course. But we had to get creative. So I said, okay, here's how we're going to learn borrowing and subtraction. You invite 8 boys over for candy bars. You open the cupboard, there's only 5. What do? You run to the store and buy. They're only going to sell you 10 in the box. So you bring 10 back. That's where you carry over whatever you're borrowing. Then the next column is you go to the store, they don't have any. You have to go to the warehouse and they only sell it in groups of 100 and on until they grasp borrowing from one column to another. Division? I sold it to them, I said, division is easy. It's multiplication. Here's your answer. The top number? That's the answer to a multiplication problem. You just have to use the other 2 numbers to figure it out. They bought it. And we got into negative numbers. And one kid said, there is no such thing. I said, well, let me put it this way. If you have $10 and you give $5 to your friend, that's a negative $5 because you don't have it. He's got it. Kind of made sense. I made a football game with 50-yard line being 0. And we used playing cards. You pulled 2. Red was positive, black was negative. And you moved your man accordingly, up and down, positive and negative numbers. They loved it. If we had 5 minutes at the end of the class, they begged me to get out to football, even though we're something beyond that. And then I got into, last thing I taught was job, I forget what we called it, career training, something like that. They researched jobs, did a resume, I had an interview with them. It was a lot of fun. But to be honest with you, I will not work in a job I don't like. I have to be happy in my work. Looks like you're ready to ask a question.
That last painting, how many hours do you have in something like that?
This one?
Yeah.
Again, that was, well, probably around 25. The firehouse was about 35 hours. Yeah, I'm not Bob Ross where he gets done in a half hour. Oh, by the way, when you watch Bob Ross, that's the third time he's painted that scene. If you watch him closely, he'll get some paint on his brush and he'll do this. He's looking at the old painting he did before that, before he puts the paint on the one for TV. But he does two before, and then he does his third one is one he has on TV. It's not continuous. I may work an hour today, I may work,
But there's a lot of detail in that for 25 hours. There's an immense amount of detail in that for 25
and that's what Bob Ross doesn't do, the detail. Bob Ross doesn't do shadows either, I realized.
That picture, right, it stood out, right? And it was weird when you did the one in the store before. I even thought to myself, oh, you should have done one of Ralph Moyer's, and the next thing there it was.
Yeah.
I knew where it was. I don't know how I knew Ralph Moyer had a bar down there.
No.
When I
I don't know about you. I never went there because my dad would know. He drank there.
He was a storyteller, man. I learned a lot about the history of that era back then when he was growing up. With the old mill race and everything. Yeah, he was a good storyteller.
My first beer was behind Tippy Weller's house across here. After fire practice, it was something in the field, and we all walked down and somebody's handing out beers. You needed the key to open it, and there were steel cans, you hardly crush them. And then after practice, we'd be up at Poachy's drinking. I was 18, 19 years old. For a long time, I did more drinking between 18 and 21 than I did after.
Who didn't?
And then I started talking about Dave Fling. He was a night manager down at the Holiday Inn, and the bartender said, as long as you guys behave, I don't mind. So we go down there and drink. When he would get off of work, and I'd be there, we'd sit in the bar. 19, 20 years old. Yes?
Tell me about how you developed the clouds. You said you were working
Oh,
on
yes.
clouds.
The first couple, I tried to actually paint them, and they didn't come out so good. Then, like on the Christmas barn, I got a little better with the shading, and then on the bridge, I started, to make it simple, I went to the high stratus clouds. But again, watching Bob Ross, he does the fan brush, makes the circles and puts little shadows in it and then upsweeps it all. This one is not the same as him because it's not wet on wet. The blue is still a little bit wet, but I just take a filbert brush, it's got a rounded end on it, and I just start cross-hatching the white, get a little more white here to make it lighter, put a little bit of blue in it to make a shadow. I like those clouds. They're not individual clouds like Bob Ross does the big thunderheads. I like that style of cloud. I think that's where I'm going to stay.
It's like a haze almost.
Yeah, and it's like a hazy summer day in Upper Salford. Yep. I remember when I worked at McConnell's, picking tomatoes, looking out past Perkiomenville, and how the mountains got lighter the farther you went, and I can still feel the humidity in that. And that's the way the clouds were. They were kind of there, but they weren't really clear.
Well, thank you very much, Brian.
You're welcome. Thank you all. You want to come out and take a closer look and ask me other questions?
Can we take pictures of them?
Yes, you may. Just don't let me find you making calendars and selling them. I will defend my intellectual property too.
Absolutely.
Are they off for sale?
What's that?
Are they off for sale?
Not that one.
Yes.